Hey everybody, welcome back or welcome if this is your first time here. I'm Dr. Alan Johnson, and on this channel I talk about the mind, well-being, productivity, and change for thinkers, makers, and everyone in between. And today I want to talk about how the small changes that we create in our lives, when we commit to them consistently, can help us to shape not just better habits, but better days, and how this sense of compound interest when it comes to our habits and routines can lead to creating really, really extraordinary advances in our life. So this is how we'll flow today. I'm going to talk about the power of compound interest, but not in finance, in our lives, in our habits, and in our routines. We'll then talk about how we can design a life worth waking up to, and doing that just one tiny shift at a time. And then finally, I'll end with some tools and rituals that I use in my own life to build on this compound interest of personal development. But let's start here. Most people chase outcomes. Yeah, so we chase titles, awards, we chase enlightenment, we chase peace. But in doing so, when we're chasing an outcome, we're usually missing what's right in front of us. That simple moment in which we are, that the simple pleasure in a day well lived, that simple awareness of an experience that we enjoyed. And I used to think this really, really strongly, that success was about crossing some sort of distant finish line. That, you could only really be happy when you were successful, and you could only be successful at some unspecified point in the future once we'd achieved some external goal. But the more that I paid attention to life, the more that I realized I was just living in delay by doing that. I was constantly pushing happiness and contentment into the future. I was just kicking it down the road, so I was never really going to get there. And I was outsourcing a sense of joy to a version of myself that didn't exist and maybe would exist in the future, but didn't ultimately exist now. But then I stumbled across a really different way to think about all of this. I asked myself, what would a perfect day really feel like? Not in fantasy, but what would it really feel like when I was living my perfect day? So, not that perfect day on the beach in Bali, but, the perfect day that is just a Tuesday and your email inbox is full and the weather is great. That kind of day. How does that become your perfect day? Because that's a much more common experience than being on the beach in Bali. So that subtle shift that I began to look toward, from future achievement to daily alignment, really began to change everything. And it made it feel possible to find contentment and joy every single day. And it taught me that perfection isn't some sort of peak. It isn't even something that we want to achieve. It is about just contributing every day the small, little, simple habits and routines that make us feel good and allow us to show up for those that we care about. And if you want to dive into the whole meditation process that I go through that supported that, I'll drop a link below in the notes to my 30-day online meditation course, which goes into a lot more detail there. But let's carry on speaking more about this and the power of compound interest, or really the power of compound attention, because I'm not talking here about finance. And actually, there have been a lot of books written about how the notion of compound interest in finance is depleting our planet and depleting our resources. So I'm not talking about that. But we know what that means. We know that small amounts of money, if they are invested regularly, they can grow over time. And they don't grow in sort of a straight line upward like that. They grow exponentially upward into a really, really steep upward curve. So that's the finance side of compound interest. But here's the even greater magic. That same principle applies to our attention and to our habits and to our sense of self-trust and to our conscious living. So every time that you get up without scrolling on your phone, and every time you pause before reacting to what someone has said, every time you take just 90 seconds to breathe before your first meeting in the day, you're not just being good or doing a habit or, being able to tick something off your to-do list. You're making a micro investment in the person that you are becoming. And these aren't big grand gestures. These aren't the things that go on your Instagram stories, but they are creating the architecture of who you are becoming. Because over time, these tiny acts compound, they build, and not in that upward linear form, but really, really steep compounding interest of inner wealth. By inner wealth, I mean that surplus of calm and clarity and connection. And over time, you start to notice that you're not just managing your life, you are inhabiting your life. So, how do we practically begin to do this? How do we shift from burnout to a sense of belongingness and connection, not just in theory, but in our day to day busy lives? Well, I hope the sort of the big trick here is already clear, that we start small. We think of ourselves as creating margins rather than massive monuments. We are creating the small, little micro investments. And here are three micro shifts that you can begin today. They're already going to begin to shift everything. So number one, sub-vocalize your intentions. So before you open your laptop, before you go into that meeting, before you pick your kids up from school or daycare, just whisper to yourself, whether it's out loud or internally, what you're doing. That, yes, I am here now. I am prepared for this meeting. Yes, I am here now. I am prepared to move to this next part of my day. This seems so simple, but we rarely do this. We rarely notice when we are caught up in the constant flow of our lives. And by sub-vocalizing our intentions for the moment that comes, we are cultivating a greater sense of spiritual maturity. And that's really what that compound interest of attention is doing here. It's not creating spiritual excitement. These aren't big, great moments of enlightenment. These are those small moments that build toward greater spiritual maturity. The next thing I would suggest that you do is bookend your days with stillness. Okay, and this can be super simple because remember, it's not about big grand gestures, it's about small actions that compound over time and build extraordinary momentum. So rather than fighting for a whole morning routine and getting stressed out with yourself because you don't know what to do or you don't have an hour in the morning of free time, try this instead. In the morning, just take 3 minutes of quiet, not on your phone, not talking to anyone else, not scrolling your emails. Just take 3 minutes of quiet. And at the end of your day, before you get into bed, sit on the edge of your bed and do the same. 3 minutes of inward quiet and stillness. Because do you know what's going to happen? You are making micro investments. And if you do that one day, and then 2 days, and then 3 days, and 4 days, and maybe you've never meditated before, what you're going to find out is those 3 minutes of quiet at the beginning and end of your day are suddenly going to become 5 minutes of a guided meditation video. Or maybe it's going to become 10 minutes of a recorded meditation practice. Maybe it's going to become 20 minutes of your own self-guided transcendental meditation or vipassana meditation. And that's such a great example of how compound attention works. That we just begin small and over time it grows. And the final thing you can bring into your life is ritualize just one ordinary thing every day. So maybe it's that cup of tea you have in the middle of the afternoon, or closing your laptop at the end of the day. When you do that every day, take the moment just to ritualize it, just to be fully present with it. And again, it's a small micro action that builds and unfolds over time. So, what are some of my own personal tools that I use? Well, I have a fantastic journal on my Remarkable tablet. It's a 5-minute journal with sections in the morning and the evening that gives me just a few moments to reflect on gratitude, to set an intention, to plan for the day ahead, to reflect on the day that has just happened. This is fantastic, a great way to begin and end my day. And because it's on my Remarkable tablet, it can always be with me. It's password protected, so no one else needs to ever see what I have written. You can also buy these in printed version, which are great. You can do these on apps on your phone. But a 5-minute journal, beginning and end of your day, is a great small micro investment. Another thing that I use, I have an app on my phone that sends me a notification every hour. But this isn't a notification for an event or a task or something like that. It's a notification just to check in with myself, just to close my eyes for a moment, take a breath, maybe reflect on what the past hour brought with it and what the hour ahead is going to bring. And that's all it takes, just a few seconds. And sometimes I'm in a meeting when that goes off, or sometimes I'm sort of walking through the underground, or I'm talking to someone, so I can't do it just then. But when I look at my phone next and I see the notification still there, I do it then. And I do it every hour, keeping me focused throughout the day. And then finally, this is something that I do every Sunday evening, and I call it my own little sort of mini retreat. It makes it sound much grander than it is. It's just 90 minutes when I completely unplug. So I don't have my phone, my tablet, my Kindle, my laptop, my TV. I don't even have podcasts. I don't even have music. And for those 90 minutes, I do lots of different stuff. Sometimes I go for a nice walk along the Thames. Sometimes I go and just sit on a bench at the park near my house. Sometimes I take a really long bath. Sometimes I make some sourdough. It doesn't matter, but those 90 minutes, that little mini retreat, are just for me. And I absolutely love it. So all of this is about learning to live from the inside out, not just trying to chase those big spiritual highs that we get after, a big yoga class or a cacao ceremony or anything like that. It's just about showing up for our lives as they are, because we don't sit around and wait for enlightenment. We don't sit around and wait for clarity. We don't sit around and wait for the right promotion or the right person in our lives or whatever it may be. We don't have the future yet. All we have is the present moment. So let's fully experience that present moment. So here's the real question for you then. What's one small change that you can make today to really include yourself more fully in your life? Just that small micro investment that's going to build and grow and compound over time. Start there and let me know in the comments below what that one small change is. And thank you so much for being here. If this stuff resonates with you, let me know in the comments, and share this video with someone else that you think would connect with this, someone at work, a friend, partner, someone in your yoga or meditation class, because this is what contemplative living looks like. It's not solitary. It's about finding our inward strength to connect and share with others in powerful ways. I'll see you next time.